The U.S. government has now officially confirmed that UFOs do in fact exist, and they don't know what they are, but they are being spotted almost daily by the military. So what does this mean? What are these things? And why is no one really talking about it? That's something I find really interesting, is that everyone was always like, oh, you know, if they say UFOs are real, civilization's going to break down. And Obama has said that these are real now.
And I'm actually being serious here, is that there's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. And so, you know, I think that people still take seriously trying to investigate and figure out what that is.
There's been tons of people that are in positions of authority that have come out and said that these are real. We have no idea what they are. We're not saying that they're aliens, but we're saying that this is technology beyond anything that we thought was possible, and that these things are all over the place, especially in the ocean, in the deep, far-out ocean. It seems like in the Atlantic a lot. And civilization's fine. Actually, people don't even really talk about it at all. My mom, I was like, Mom, you see all this this interesting UFO stuff that's been, like, even Fox News is talking about it, and she's like, no, I haven't really heard anything about it. So civilization didn't break down, but this is interesting. What are these things? If they are not aliens, then who is it? They don't seem to be shown. I mean, at least as far as what the general public knows, they're not seemingly aggressive. But like Fravor, I believe his name was, the pilot that saw the tic-tac shaped UFO out over the Atlantic, he said that these things were, it was a clear physical object of technology that was acting intelligent, and it could fly through the air, and it could go into the water.
About 100 miles southwest of San Diego, between San Diego and Ensenada, Mexico.
Yep.
On a clear, perfect day, blue waters. We get out to the spot where they tell us it's at. We start looking around, and both airplanes see a disturbance in the water and a white 40-foot long tic-tac shaped object just hovering above the water, going forward, back, left, right. There's no rotor wash, there's no wings, nothing. So as we drive around in a clockwise flow, we get to about the 9 o'clock position, and I said, well, I'm going to go down and check it out, and the other jet is going to stay high. So as we go down, when we get to the 12 o'clock position, it starts to mirror us. So it's in a clockwise flow, and it's on the opposite side of the circle from us. And we continue this. It's in a climb, we're in a descent, we're getting a great look at it. This whole thing takes about probably up to 5 minutes from the time we show up. I get over to the 8 o'clock position, it's at about the 2 o'clock position, and I decide I'm going to go and see what it is, and it's about 2,000 feet below me. And I cut across the circle, and as I get within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerates to the south in about 2 seconds and disappears.
A lot of these sightings and reports, they report that these objects have this capacity to be sort of, how would you say, like interdimensional between space and water. I mean, we don't have anything that can fly like an airplane, that can also turn into a submarine on command. At least I don't know anything about the military, what their capacities are, but as far as the people in the military, they're saying we've never seen anything that can do this, and it's also not displaying any forms of exhaust or any signatures that there is a vehicle there outside of the vehicle itself. And these things seem to have some kind of special propulsion, where maybe it's like bending gravity, and sort of as it bends, like if you were to put a bowling ball in the center of a bed, and it sort of pushes its way to the center. So maybe these things somehow have a technology, sort of like what Bob Lazar was actually explaining, that these things have a special propulsion where they can use gravity to accelerate and to move itself by bending space in front of it. Or at least that's how I interpret it in my head. I'm not sure if that's exactly what is happening. So Is this like something that we need to be concerned about? If these things are just flying all around the U.S. military bases, and it's a technology that's beyond anything that we've seen. I'm not sure, but you know, it's interesting that, I mean, you would think that's definitely a very I mean, if this was Chinese, if it had a big Chinese flag on the side of it, I'm sure this would be all over the news, and it'd be a huge story, and we would be preparing troops, I assume, if China was flying these crafts daily in U.S. military zones and going in flying through the air and going into the water and splitting off into multiples and doing all this sort of weird stuff. I think it'd be a whole different story, but because it's unmarked, it's so unusual, it's almost taboo to take as a serious thing. But I guess it's, I mean, I personally don't feel threatened by the idea that aliens might be potentially visiting us. I mean, a military zone seems like a place that they would be checking out. You know, as the technological species of this planet, humans, we have the interest of watching other creatures sort of react to their environment, like ant colonies or bee colonies. It's really fascinating that things also colonize. That this is a fundamental in nature. That this species coming together and living in a colony, and that's exactly what humans are doing. And instead of producing honey, we produce technology. So you know, any other species that has produced technology, I imagine, would find it fascinating to come visit a species in its early stages. So, you know, I almost imagine it as like a history lesson or something, that these things are sort of like, what are they? I don't know if it's aliens, but I like to think it's aliens because that's just a way funner story. If it is aliens, I like to think that they're just, you know, checking us out and like being fascinated by us, because I mean, we are very fascinating, and we're in such an interesting transitional period right now where we are still very much in our primal animalistic selves. War really does dominate the world, and intimidation and this sort of tribalism that is now being expressed through nationalities and through corporations, I would say, even more so. And at the same time, as these sort of tribal echoes of our past is still finding its way into the modern era, we are technologically advancing at a rate that's like almost like, whoa, you know, I'm in my 20s still, and I've seen so much in my life. The technology it's crazy what it's done, and since I've just been in high school or something, you know. I used to have to use dial-up on my internet. That would be, could you imagine having to use dial-up? That's like that sounds like something from the Pilgrim era or something, you know? Like, kids these days have no idea the struggles that some of us went through with technology. But it's what I'm saying is, you know, we're in a very interesting transitional period where we have this magic in a way, you know. I mean, if you would have any other, just because it's so normal to us, any era outside the last 100 years would look at anything that we have right now in absolute awe and literal magic in a way. Like the internet is just there in the air, and that all our devices can connect to this invisible dimension of information, and we could upload data that just exist here. And yeah, I mean, this is magic that we can communicate instantaneously through this ethereal consciousness that it's the hive mind, you know. It's this thing. It's the colonial colony, the mind of the colony of the species, and it's the way that it's the egg. It's the early stages of telepathy, I feel like, and it's the early stages to us developing our own UFO. You know, that's Terence McKenna had this idea that the UFO is actually the the object that technology is leading to. Because, like, if you think about it, what are we doing? You know, we're all sort of just unconsciously playing into this consistent advancement. So, where is it leading? Where are we going? Where are we headed? Because we're clearly headed somewhere, you know. You can see that technology is turning into something. Maybe it's to birth a new species, an artificial intelligence, or maybe it's transcendence, or that, you know, it's leading us to this to what actually Terence McKenna did call it this transcendental object, where it's an interdimensional object, that when we tune into this consciousness, the unidentified object, that we can travel through space. We're outside of time. And some people hypothesize that maybe that's what these objects are, is that they're us from the future, or that they're, if they are species from a different planet, they could be traveling from, you know, thousands of years in the past, but because light is, if they're traveling faster than the speed of light, then that means that they could be, you know, in a way different era than us. They're outside of time. So, you know, like, it's the same thing that they say when you look at some of the stars. Some of those stars in the sky are already burnt out because time is required for that light to travel through space. And it might be so far away that it still hasn't hit us yet. So a star that exploded 10 billion years ago, but it's just so far away, you know, 10 billion light years or whatever, then, you know, one day we might finally see it burn out, even though it burned out infinite times ago, maybe even before the Earth was born. So maybe these creatures, maybe these technological beings, that's probably what these aliens are, if they are aliens. Yeah, they're probably in a different stage of evolution than us, because if you think about it, human beings can't really travel through space unless we built an organic spaceship that was like the Earth, and maybe that's what the Earth is. But to travel generationally to a different star system, we could do it that way. But as far as like building a little machine and trying to go through space, it's not very likely that we can do that as biological creatures. So in a way, maybe this next step in our evolution is to plug in with the machine so that we can leave the planet. You know, maybe that's why we're at such a disharmony with the planet. That's a different topic to talk about, but maybe that's what these creatures are. They are creatures that have, they're technological creatures. They're the ancestors, you know, they're the ancestors of beings that made technology, and biology is temporary, but maybe these things created a self-replicating technological being that could fix itself and upgrade itself and live off of the solar energy and travel through the universe, collecting information, examining, exploring with a consciousness, you know. I mean, if you think about the internet in a way is sort of like the consciousness of the artificial intelligence. It's got all of us constantly uploading data to it. It knows humans better than humans know humans, and it just hasn't woken up yet. So I'm thinking that we are sort of building, in a way, our own UFOs through the early stage. We don't see it yet because we're such early in our development, but I think that that's what probably these creatures that are studying us, these unidentified flying objects, are. They're probably these types of entities, you know, that we're eventually going to be. So. Is this just a ploy from the government to raise money, to militarize space? That's another thing we need to think about, because can we trust the U.S. government? Why are they releasing this information? Why is it that no other governments have released this information? And maybe they have. If they have, leave it in the comments below, because I don't really know about any. So are these governments, I mean, why hasn't China said, oh yeah, there is? I did actually see that China is starting to build a UFO program now. But it seems, see, that's the thing. It seems like a pissing contest, you know? It's like, oh, I can piss farther than you. And now the next step is going to say, oh, these things are real. We don't know what they are. So we need to put, you know, like space missiles up. That can be really dangerous for war. You know, we don't want giant missiles from Russia or something flying over Los Angeles or New York. But that seems like a reality in the next steps of evolution, or in the next steps of militarizing ourselves, outside of sort of using technology and robots. That this putting missiles in space is a scary, obvious next step. So is that what is happening right now? That because Trump was constantly talking about Space Force. If you remember that, Trump was always saying my Space Force. Which he's the one that put in this UFO thing, saying, you know, it could just be some, you know, another political scam. But I do hope it's real. I do hope it's aliens. I do see the possibility that it could be aliens, and that there are technological creatures that are, you know, floating out in the universe, exploring. You know, thinking about the things we think about. What is the meaning of life? I don't know, but it's fun to think about. And what do you think? These are real. We know they're real. What are they? Are they aliens? Are they different? Are they a different country? If they're not a different country, then what does that make them? I'm not sure. Because the government was like, oh, well, we don't think they're aliens. I think we're still waiting for that UFO report. It's June now of 2021, so I think that's coming out soon. But yeah, it's interesting because they said we don't think it's aliens. Okay, we don't think it's aliens, and what is it? It's either you, as in the U.S. government as a secret program, or it's a different country. And if it's not a different country, then I don't know what that means. So what do you guys think? Do you think it's a threat? Do you think it's something we should be talking about as a civilization, as like a collective, and trying to figure this out? Is it something that we should just be business as usual, and it's just sort of something quirky that the government has to deal with? Or what do you think? Leave a comment below. I'm really interested. I personally hope it's aliens. I really do. I really have my fingers crossed that there's going to be a legitimate alien, not invasion, but an alien fist bump that's going to be coming soon. Like, hey, you guys, the universe is alive. It's crazy. You guys need to relax. Stop fighting each other. There are different colonies. Star Wars is almost real, except there's no war. Everyone's cool. It's star peace. So that's what I'm hoping for. Who knows for sure. Anyways, my name is Dakota. This is my YouTube channel. Catch you next time.